Welcome back to Epic Agents, the Best in Real Estate podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Hamm, recording with you from the Charlotte metro area of North Carolina. Joining me is Jen Myers. Jen is a principal broker and real estate agent in the Portland metro area of Portland, Oregon, to be specific. She's affiliated with the Premier Property Group. She leads Team Jen Runs Real Estate. She's a certified divorce real estate expert. She's been in the industry over 17 years, and she can be found on Instagram at Jen Myers Runs Real Estate, which is actually how we connect, and we'll get into that in just a minute. Jen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm very excited to be here.
Excited to have you on. I mentioned we can thank the Instagram algorithm for me happening upon your social media account and us connecting. It's relevant to this conversation. That's why I brought it up. We're going to dive into that in a little bit. But Jen, before we get into the divorce real estate space and your business, and also some of what you're doing as far as marketing, and also how you've incorporated your running lifestyle into your business and your brand as well, share for listeners just a little bit of your bio, hometown, education, and what inspired you to get into real estate.
Yeah, so I grew up in a little rural town in Canby, Oregon. My parents still live there in the same house we grew up in. And I ended up going to college at the University of Oregon. I have a bachelor's degree in English, which there's not a lot of options for a bachelor degree in English. I got to read a lot of great books. I got into real estate just by chance one day. I was working as a receptionist in the medical field, and one day I walked out to go to lunch, a cute little drive-through Thai food place in Bend, Oregon, and I was just miserable, completely miserable at my job. So I do what all 20-year-olds do when they're miserable at their job, and I called my mom in tears and said, I can't take this anymore. And she said, well, you should just go get your real estate license. I was like, why not? So I drove to the pro schools and picked up all the materials, and that kind of started me where I'm at today.
Well, I've heard stranger reasons for getting into the real estate industry. I mean, I think you were at that point in your, just at the beginning of your adult career, right? And you kind of had a crossroads where wasn't really sure what you were going to do. Obviously weren't loving what you were doing at the time.
Yeah.
And
And you shouldn't be crying over Thai food. I mean,
right,
that's
right.
just not acceptable. So you have to make a change.
I totally agree. Yeah, that should be your first sign right there.
Something's wrong.
Well, cool. And so how old were you again when you got your real estate license?
I officially got licensed in 2006. So I was, oh man, I'd have to do math. I was in my mid 20s.
Okay.
I was in my mid 20s when I got my real estate license. I didn't start selling real estate right away. I held on to it for a little bit and then started selling real estate when the market crashed. It was the perfect time. It actually was the perfect time to start. I think that agents who survived that market just have a very different understanding of the real estate process and what it means to truly help people, because every listing appointment we were going to was telling people that they had no money left in their house. It was the most desperate time I've ever seen in our market. And it really sets a different foundation for how you approach people, how you take care of people. You're their guiding light through a really difficult time sometimes. So
I love that you brought that up and that you mentioned that it was actually, in some sense, it was obviously a tremendously difficult time for homeowners and for the country in general, but you're not the first successful real estate agent that I've spoken with, who I know here locally, and I've also interviewed here on this podcast, who launched their career right around that time and have developed extremely successful careers. I think that, I mean, personally, I'm thinking that, when we contrast getting into the industry in 2007, 8, 9, 10 to those who got into it in 2019, 2020, 2021, totally different, right? Totally different. And I think that it, like to your point, it must have really set such a solid foundation for your business practices and for your marketing and for like every minute of every meeting and appointment counted, right?
Well, it did. I started in real estate and I didn't know what I was doing. And it was during this time where agents were bailing out of the market because they knew they weren't going to be making a living. Um, People were just losing money in their own homes left and right. And I flew myself I collected all my money that I had and I flew myself to Riverside, California and went to a Tom Ferry conference. And that gave me just enough information. I door knocked. I cold called. My mission was to help every person that I could. And I made a T-shirt because we're talking about the running portion. I made a T-shirt, and on the back it was "Running Realtor." And for sale by owner homes were everywhere during that time, and I would just go for a run, and I would collect flyers from every for sale by owner that I could, and call them to see if I could help them in any way. So that's how I survived during that time. And then the other thing that I did that I think helped a lot with my career today is I ran broker price opinions for banks. I did hundreds of them. And they have really specific criteria to comp homes out with in order for them to accept the report. And I got really good at running numbers on homes. And so when I started on a real estate team, when I moved over to Portland, the principal broker and I comped like within a couple $1,000s of each other every single time because I had been doing nothing but comping homes endlessly for banks for years. So
I would love to chat with you sometime offline about best practices when it comes to
yeah,
producing a broker price opinion for a property. I'm
absolutely.
pretty decent at it, but and to your rewinding a little bit, your point about really not using your real estate license for a little while once you obtained it. I'm the same way. I didn't utilize my license for a solid year while I decided how I was going to use it, who I was going to serve, and the way I was going to run my business and the type of marketing I was going to do.
Yeah.
But I feel like CMAs, broker price opinions, is something that that'd be an awesome webinar. Have you ever done something like that?
I haven't, but I would be totally open to doing
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Let's do that. We'll talk about that. Definitely, we'll follow up on that. I think that's a great idea. I think a lot of brokers and agents could use some help in that space as well. So I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation that you're a certified divorce real estate expert, and it's one of the things that stood out about your marketing to me, and one of the reasons why I wanted to connect with you was that I'm such a firm believer and an advocate for uh, picking a niche, regardless of what type of small business you're in, whether you're a real estate broker or you're any kind of professional service provider, of like selecting a fairly narrow niche and going a mile deep, like really, really becoming an expert at serving a small segment or a small category of clients. So when I saw that, that really resonated with me. I have a close friend here in the area who's a really successful family law attorney, and she does she represents a lot of clients in divorce proceedings, and we've talked a little bit about, I've helped her with CMAs and some consulting a little bit with her clients, and I just think that that's like a really good space to be in. And I would love to know how did you select that as a niche to kind of dive into?
It had never really crossed my mind until a couple years ago. I had a very close friend who was going through a tumultuous divorce, and she was on the phone with her attorney all the time. asking questions. And some of her questions were real estate related, and her attorney would always refer her to her real I was the real estate friend. Talk to your real estate friend. And it really hit a head one day when she received a phone call um, where, someone was essentially trying to take away her right to sell her house. They were going to try to take her name off the titles, trying to send paperwork through without her even understanding what it was for her to sign. And it would have destroyed her negotiating power. And I said, whoa, 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 wait, before you sign anything, we need to review it. So we reviewed the documents, and I said, you need to call your attorney right now. And without even the attorney and I directly ever meeting, we were, supporting this person through something that was very stressful. There's a lot of emotion that goes into that. And she needed guidance. So after that process, I started researching the divorce niche a little bit more because I really had a clear picture that this is an area where people truly need help. Because attorneys have so much on their plate. They're negotiating child custody, they're dividing assets, they're dividing personal property, they're working with restraining orders. I mean, there is an endless list on their plate of what they're having to deal with. And so when they have an expert in something like this in their corner that's helping make their lives easier and helping their client, it makes a huge difference. And a lot of people don't know what their options are when it comes to the house. And it's so important as they're thinking about their future, having someone in there, that's there saying, here's your options. I am trained as a neutral third party. There are a lot of divorce certifications out there, but the one that I'm certified in is, in my opinion, one of the best. I'm certified through the Alumni Institute. They send us through months of rigorous training. It is not just a small course. It is training us to work with attorneys. It is training us to take the stand and testify. And my job is to come into the situation as a neutral for each seller so that they know that I am not biased one way or the other. My only goal is to get them to the finish line and net them as much as I can so that they can move on with their lives. So I feel very passionately about what I do, and it is not an easy road, but it is worth it every single time.
Oh, I have no doubt it's not an easy road. It's got to be very, very challenging and stressful, but it's such an important role that you play in the process. And the attorneys that you collaborate with must be so relieved that they have someone who's an expert in that space that they can lean on when it comes to the real estate side of the divorce settlement.
Yeah, I mean, part of my job is also helping, educate the attorneys on how I can help them. Not everybody knows who we are and what we do. We offer continuing education to attorneys. We can bring in information for them and have lunch and learns and talk to them. I have a whole team that I work with. I have a certified divorce lending professional and a certified divorce financial planner. And, together, those three people, those two and then myself can help paint a really clear picture to someone that is trying to decide, how should I divide up my assets? What can I do? What are my tax liabilities? There's so many things to consider, and having a team of people that give you your options, I think, is absolutely necessary. And I do think the attorneys that I've worked with have expressed appreciation and just being able to know that they can pass something off, and I'm going to take care of it and I'm going to get it done.
You mentioned a certified divorce financial planner, and what was the other
A
professional?
certified divorce lending professional.
Lending professional.
Hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, you used the word guidance earlier. I love that you used that word because I can imagine guidance in a divorce situation is it. The term 10x comes to mind. Like the importance of that guidance, just it must be amplified during that process.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan in, trying to get someone to do something just because I'll close a deal. That is not at all, what this is. This is I truly hope that people who want to keep the house can keep the house. That's job number one. Can they? Figuring out what their financial options are is part of figuring out if that's even an option for them. And so it really is just, whether we're working with people who have, we specialize in expired homes as well, expired listings, or helping people decide their options when they're getting a divorce. People have to understand what their options are. It's this to me isn't a doesn't have to be a pushy process. This is a here's your, tray of all your options you can pick from. What's going to benefit you? What do you want? What's your goal? I'm very goal oriented when we sit down at a listing appointment and talk to people.
There's so much more, I'm sure, that we could talk about this, how, a certified divorce real estate expert helps clients, helps attorneys navigate the process. You had mentioned an institute. What was where you received your certification? What was the name of that
Yeah,
institute?
so I received my certification through the Alumni Institute. Their president is Laurel Starks. She founded the institute, and now all 50 states have me in them. And they're very selective about who they pick. They want to make sure that whoever is coming into the community is not only going to be serving the clients, but serving the attorneys who are trying to help those people as well. It's an incredible program, and we're networked with agents all over the U.S.
It sounds like a pretty intense program too, from the way you described it. How long did it take?
It took me several months to get certified. I had to pass a written exam. I had to pass an oral exam given to me by an attorney. They have a very high standard for who's going to be serving the attorney community.
I'll have a link to the Alumni Institute in the description for this episode for listeners who might want to do a little more research and
Absolutely.
might want to pursue that path as well. I think that would be awesome. Circling back, you had mentioned, so you just mentioned that you and your team specialize in expired listings too, which is very intriguing to me. You mentioned that you had attended a Tom Ferry conference,
Uh-huh.
the illustrious and ubiquitous Tom Ferry, and you brought up door knocking, cold calling, and then you brought up expired listings. How much of that is involved in your business now? That's the kind of stuff that I think new agents just are terrified of doing. Are you still working expireds and FISBOs?
So I am not working for sell by owners anymore. I do work expireds. There, I think you have to be careful. Tom Ferry's organization is wonderful. He's going to give you a million ideas of all the things that you can go out and do. And as a new real estate agent, you're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, the world is my oyster. I can do so many things." But you really need to pick like two key areas to focus in if you want to have an impact on your income, because you can get lost in figuring out what all those options could mean for you, and you're going to want to dabble in all of them. But really focusing on two key areas is where you're going to see the most success. So my business really focuses on the divorce niche, and then we focus on expired listings. And I approach expired listings with the same, intention that I approach the divorce niche, in terms of, I'm here to help you. It didn't go great the first time. What are we going to change? Here's what I can offer you that is going to help you be successful. It's all about making sure that they have success the next time around. But we really focus on those two areas.
That's a point worth underscoring for sure. And I've brought this up in other recordings as well, and we'll probably bring it up in numerous future recordings too, that one of the things, and I forget who I heard this from, I didn't make this up, but I 100% agree with it, that there are 1,000 ways to market your business, and every single one of those ways works.
Mm-hmm.
But what doesn't work is trying to do all 1,000 of them, right?
Yeah.
So you really have to pick, as you said, pick two strategies, pick two avenues that you're going to pursue, either in your marketing or the types of clients that you're going to serve. I think that's definitely worth underscoring. I love that you brought that up, and I think that that's also a sentiment that most of the really successful real estate agents that I've had on this podcast and that I know here locally as well, they would 1,000% agree with that.
Yeah. I think, you have geo farming and your sphere of influence, and you can have for sale by owners, and maybe you're focusing on YouTube and publishing videos for YouTube. And there's so many ways that you can go, but you have to decide, what's your jam. I don't mind cold calling. I think because I've done it for so long, it doesn't bother me. You get yelled at, you get you get some of the craziest things that happen on the other end of the phone, but you're dialing until you get to the person who is going to want to talk to you. And then when you get to that person, then that's what you've been waiting for. This is your chance to step up. I was calling last week and talked with a gentleman who I'm listing his house in 2 weeks, and it turns out his sister's also selling her house, and so it's a family affair. We're getting all of them taken care of, and it feels good to be able to sit down and look at them and tell them, maybe I'm not the person you want to hire, maybe I am, but I know that my team can help you, and here's exactly how we're going to do it so you don't have to worry about it. And that's what they want to know. Are you actually going to be able to do it this next time around? You got to have a good plan.
I wondered how you were continuing to reach out to, obviously cold calling is how you began reaching out to expired listings early in your career. Still cold calling? Is that the strategy?
Yeah, so I'm on the Espresso Agent platform. I
Hmm.
really like that platform. I get updates every day of contacts, and then I can create lots of different folders to keep them all organized. And so that platform seems to work really well. There's a lot of them out there, but that's the one that I like to use.
Well, you've been doing it now for over 17 years, right around 18 years. And so obviously you've refined this process, and it is a numbers game to a certain extent, right? I mean, you have to know going in. I think that most new agents, I've been in other commission sales positions before real estate, so I understand the value and the difficulty of cold calling, but also that it's also a very effective strategy. And I've been self-employed with my own businesses for almost 15 years. So there's been a lot of cold outreach that has
Hmm.
resulted in business for myself. And that's just something that you have to practice, right? You got to get the
Yes.
reps in and practice it.
Yeah, it is. For new agents out there, I was a little bit of a late bloomer. So I did do, my for sale by owners and my expired calling. And when I first started, I hated it. It was like a pit in my stomach every single time. This person's gonna yell at me. This person's gonna hate me. It was really excruciating to begin with. I started out on real estate teams. So I was on a family run team when I first started, and then in Bend, Oregon, and then I moved to the Portland area, and I was on a different family run real estate team. And that allowed me to have a lot of experience under my belt before I really branched out onto my own. And then when I branched out on my own, it was necessary. Teams will feed you leads as you're getting going. You got to get really good at figuring out where you're going to generate your own business and how you're going to stand out from the thousands of other real estate agents that are also marketing themselves on Instagram and social media. So, I have a pretty thick skin, and so now getting yelled at doesn't bother me. But you do have to be prepared. It is a numbers game. I might call for an hour and talk to 40 or 50 different people without anything. And then the next week, I might call for an hour and talk to 10 people and get two leads. It's all about numbers, and you have to have a realistic expectation that it takes some time to get going. It's going to take you 6 months likely before you close your first transaction. You just have to, give yourself some grace and be really realistic.
Be patient, begin with that end
Yeah.
in mind for sure.
Yeah.
like the last thing I need to do is follow another marketing or entrepreneurial guru or influencer, but I recently started consuming some of the Alex Hermosi video content on YouTube, and obviously a super smart guy, but he mentioned something recently in a video that he shared that he was really hammering home the point of, rather than offering so many different products and marketing across so many different channels, you should begin with one product or service or expertise, right, or niche, and one channel. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that having two is okay too, but you definitely don't want to try to serve 5 or 6 or 7 different categories of buyers and sellers, because you just simply don't have the bandwidth to do that. So you've chosen the divorce niche as a category that to become an expert in, and a category of people that you can really serve and help. And then of course we're going to talk about running here in a minute, but what channel do you use? What's your marketing channel specifically for the divorce category, divorce real estate category? Are you doing more in person?
So, the single best hire that I ever made was, I call her my chief creative officer. She runs my social media. So I shoot the videos and she works to make sure that all of our platforms are updated. So we're heavier into like Facebook and Instagram. And then we do have a YouTube channel where she posts our videos. The divorce niche, you have to be a little bit more careful, because what I never want is any of my content going out there and sounding predatory. People are at the lowest they can feel right now. Emotions are high, they're stressed out. And I think that there are some really predatory practices out there for people who are going through this time. So we try to put out content that is informational, and kind of leave it at that. You won't see a lot of divorce content on my social media pages. I am marketing to attorneys in person. I visit their offices, I call them, I bring them coffee, I send them their information for their continuing education. So a lot of that is in person. But in terms of like, people just around us going through divorce, we will post a little bit of content here and there for informational reasons, but we don't heavily post a lot of video about it.
Some light online marketing, helpful informational content. But yeah, I could see why networking in person with attorneys in your area would make a lot of sense. I feel like that would be probably the best way to grow that side of your business for sure. Because there's so much trust that has to be involved, right? When
Yes.
an attorney selects you as their real estate partner, it goes back to the know, like, and trust, but it's so much amplified when under these circumstances, I feel like.
Yeah. In the Portland area, there are 3 certified divorce real estate experts. The Alumni Institute is really calculated in how many CDREs they place in each state and each area, so that it's not like an oversaturation, but there's enough to serve the attorney community. And those other CDREs and I collaborate constantly, making sure that the messages that we're getting out are consistent, that we're not overlapping information, and that, our goal is for these divorce cases, if an attorney is having to give 3 names of people who can help these clients, that our names are on there to serve. So we're really trying to further that message out in the attorney community in Portland right now.
I can't wait until I can hire a chief creative officer.
Oh my gosh. Chief Creative Officer, best hire ever. She helps make all of my postcards. She makes all of our marketing. She does a phenomenal job.
I love it. I know how
Yep.
much work goes into that. So Yeah, I can't wait. Someday, I've always have a different response when people ask me, or that quintessential question, "What does success look like to you?" And I've had all kinds of different answers for that in my career. But lately, it's success looks like when I hire a chief creative officer. That's when I
Yes.
know I'm successful. So,
You did a cool name. We couldn't just be like social media manager.
right,
So
right,
we got to come up with something better.
absolutely, absolutely, I love it. Jen, before I let you go, I want to talk a little bit about your running passion as
Mhm.
well. So, for viewers of this video, if you could just move aside a little bit, we'll
Yeah.
take a look at that logo. Jen runs real estate. Perfect. Obviously, it plays a big role in your brand,
Mhm.
and it's something that you're really passionate about. Share a little bit about your involvement in running. How did that start, and how does that play a role in your business today?
I've been running since high school. I love distance running. And I think in a past life, I was like some Olympian distance runner somewhere. I think about it all the time. And I'm pretty seasoned. I've done a lot of marathoning. I've been to Boston twice. I was in Boston in 2013. We crossed the finish line 5 minutes before the bombs went off, so that was
Wow,
a very
wow.
interesting time. And I've transitioned my running into Ironman, so I'm also a triathlete. But when we came up with Jen Runs Real Estate, I started it during COVID, and my husband and I were camping, and I said, what is my name gonna be? And he goes, you need to be like something with running because you love it so much and it's what you do all the time. And he goes, you could do a play on the words like Jen runs, you're a runner, but it's like you also run the real estate industry. So he actually came up with the name for Jen Runs Real Estate. And we've used it to do like neighborhood rundowns where we run through the neighborhood and talk to local business owners. And we use it to showcase different areas around our listings. It's been a fun way to kind of get people involved just a more fun way. But I think what it really also speaks to, and probably my last piece of advice for newer agents that are getting into the market, is you're gonna see all kinds of real estate agents out there. Really fancy ones, luxury real estate agents. You're gonna see people who are just killing it on YouTube. I am, I dress professionally when I'm meeting with my attorneys and meeting with my clients, but I am a, a runner. I'm classic rock, leather runner, and I really had to figure out how to embrace that about myself and just run with it. So, whoever you are, you really need to, for your brand, just embrace whoever that is. And if you do, your brand will be successful. Don't try to be somebody else. You have to be you.
I love that advice. Excellent, excellent advice. I love it. And yeah, Iron Man, that's crazy.
It is. I actually agree with you. It's not a normal thing.
That is hard, hard work. I've been a runner all of my life. I'm not a marathoner. My running lifestyle has kind of done a lot of this, right? So, I'm currently back on the upward climb again, but I have friends who are triathletes, and man, that's brutal. And Ironman, of course, like there's triathlons, and then there's Ironman. Ironman is just a completely different level. Have you completed one yet?
I have. I completed a full Ironman in 2017. I did Coeur d'Alene,
Hmm.
and that was absolute. It's just before you bike 107 miles, and then you're getting ready to go run, and it's 90 degrees, and then they have people in the tents who help you change your clothes and get ready to go. And I was getting ready to transition from the bike to the run, and I just looked at the volunteer and I said, "What the hell am I doing?" And she goes, "Honey, I don't know. You're all crazy." And then helped me change, and then I was out the door. But I feel you on those ups and downs. These last couple years have been challenging, and I've kind of fallen off the bandwagon with that and just got back into racing. I'm set to do the Tri Cities Half Ironman next month, and then have some big goals for next year. So hang in there, give yourself grace. It'll pick back up again.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. That's helpful to hear that. Jen, this has been just awesome. I'm so glad that we connected. I can't wait to share this conversation with our listeners. And before I let you go, on that note, how can listeners learn more about you and connect with you if they want to?
The best way to connect with us is through our social media. So if you follow me on Instagram, you can message me. Facebook and Instagram are really the best ways to go. You can also find out more information about our services on our website. But I would definitely say for all the up to date information that we're providing, from listings to mortgage interest rates to what's happening with the NAR lawsuit, definitely taking a look at our Instagram to stay up to date and connect with us there.
Awesome. I'll have links, of course, in the show notes and the description for this episode. Jen Myers, principal broker, real estate agent, leader at Team Jen Runs Real Estate in the Portland metro area of Oregon. Jen, thanks again so much for joining the podcast.
Yeah, this was a total blast. Thank you so much for having me.